You talking about the. Somebody what we've done this year is really. There's a story behind the truck.
Is there?
Joe Dudley. Who's almost the beginning. He turned and still there's sidewalks scattered around the country. It becomes a nice short. There's money at Earth.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And our fellow out in Missouri. And gave Joe a surprise birthday present. And he was just thrilled because in his office, he worked for the state of Tennessee. He had multiple cars, trucks, farm equipment. He died a couple of years later. His wife had already died. But his daughter, through his truck.
You have to roll over on your head on
So they got a list of all the 21. We were board every morning, so we carried with us for this Friday. Individuals, churches, with donation. Yes, see what's the rest of the way in the road. Many years ago, John Miller was preaching,
These are fine things.
in Huntington, West Virginia. And he gave the victory, he was coming home.
If you want to take another, let's see. This one's fast.
I don't know if you're going to first.
Yeah. You never know. Hello.
Good morning.
I thought you were my cousin Joyce, from the New York office. He's from, here in Ohio. Well, you are,
I'm going to see.
nice to meet you. You have a relative here that is a foot doctor.
I don't know.
I'm seeing at Castile, that's named Castile, on Tuesday or
CSP.
No, it's ELL.
Well, if it is, we can probably trace ancestry back to that.
Okay. I see him on Thursday, I'll ask you. And what is his name?
Dwayne,
Wayne. Ask him, then he's relative there.
most Castiles, somebody set up a special DNA test. And everybody that's taken it, the same DNA, Captain Edmond Duke Castile. He had a patient his name. And he's a great grandfather. And they tend to migrate out of Pennsylvania, down to Maryland, down to Virginia, and East Tennessee. My third great grandfather, Barney Castillo, was the first preacher at a little congregation in McMinn County, Tennessee.
Okay.
So
I'm really coincided to the parents. They work at
Learn and
and then
deliver.
do that, and they will do that.
It works.
the thing about it,
That's all I got to
in
do.
McMinn County, Tennessee, Castillo,
They're all happy. You guys are happy, I'll be happy with
Well,
you.
I'm Nancy Smith. This is Nancy Marcel. This is Nancy again. Yes.
We got that right there.
I preached in Secret, Delaware. 3 preachers had wives whose name was Betty. I said, well, I'll just refer to mine as Betty J. I said, that didn't work. So we've got down Betty Joe and Betty G. So it's my Betty, your Betty, and his Betty.
Well, it's nice to meet you. You want to sit back here, wherever you want to sit, Nancy. Whatever's best for you. Leave that up to you. Let's sit up here.
Did you have something back I didn't see a pamphlet out there. There should be.
Yeah, I think it's next weekend.
Okay.
Yeah.
I should have my band with me.
That we got there.
My daughter got me across serious.
Well, good.
And I've been wanting, I haven't even told her.
Ooh.
My sister Angie, she's like, he's in on the beach. She said, all of a sudden, the other night, it popped in my head, get her across my mom. I said,
When did you move over here?
in, let's see, 15. And, yeah, so, well, actually, on my birthday, because I saw, did the closing on my birthday.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay, 9 years, right?
And the soccer is there for me. Yeah, so very nice.
Yeah.
All 3 of them.
My mother and I, at one point, we looked at it.
Or I can drive.
Just a few more minutes closer to,
Yeah,
I start out to drive down to 586 every day for 30 years. We looked at Martinsburg.
Good morning.
Morning.
It's our usual 5 after time we're getting started, so we'll go ahead and get things going. We have Brother Dwayne Castile with us, and as I got up here to introduce him, I realized I don't really know you that well, so I don't have too much to say, except for he is working with the Churches of Christ disaster relief effort, and he's going to be sharing some about that good work. And of course, these days we know that there's a big need with many of those things, and so we're happy to hear about the work that they're doing. And so I'll just go ahead and turn things over to you, Dwayne.
Okay. I need to quit at what time?
About 10:15.
Okay. Oh, good morning.
Morning.
Thank you, folks, for letting me come and be with you this morning. It's a nice rainy morning. At least it's not raining like it did down in Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, and East Tennessee. I don't know if any of you's ever been down across I-40 from Knoxville to Asheville, North Carolina. You can't do that. I saw a photograph somebody put on Facebook, showed a section of the interstate. Looked good. Then the next photo was what it looked like that day. It looked like a river flowing down the interstate, all of it. But I'm with Churches of Christ Disaster Relief Effort. We operate out of Nashville, Tennessee, and sometimes people confuse us with Churches of Christ Disaster Response Team out of Ohio. What we do, we deliver semi-truckloads of relief supplies following disasters. Those folks go in and they repair buildings and they clean up the mess from floods and from hurricanes and do different things. We're 2 different groups.
We sort of complement one another. I had an interesting thing happen to me about a week ago. I still got a lingering of a cough and all, but I was in the supermarket picking up some things, and I thought, well, let me get something for this cough, and got it. And the cashier was underage. You know, certain medicines, you got to be, I guess, 21 to ring them up. And so she called for somebody else to come over. Well, the lady had to prove that I was over 21. And she said, show me your proof. And I pulled my driver's license out, and she looked at it and said, 7/1939. I said, yeah. I said, I'm a little past 40. I'm 85. And she said, blow me away. She made my day, thinking I wasn't 85 years old, but I am. Been married to my wife for 66 years. Betty and I grew up in a congregation together from the time we were 9, 10 years old. Lived in different towns, went to different schools, but our families worshiped together. So we sort of grew up together in church. Got married. I liked the month being 19. She was 18 and a half. And so you can figure her age out of that. She's 84. And 3 years later, we started our family. We couldn't have children of our own. We adopted our first baby on our 3rd wedding anniversary. And 2 years later, we adopted our second son. And 6 years later, we adopted our daughter. So we had 3 children. Our oldest son is deceased. He lost the battle with cancer. Be 3 years Veterans Day. And we have grandchildren. We have great-grandchildren. I even have one great-great-granddaughter. So our family is not all that large, but we've got a pretty unique family. In December, I live in Charlestown, West Virginia. December, we're making a trip to Columbus, Georgia. A great-granddaughter has graduated from college, and we're going down to celebrate with her. As far as my life, I preached for 40 years, served 4 different congregations during that time. The last 20 of those years, I did short-term mission work in places like Dominican Republic, China, Jamaica, Cuba. Most of it was done in Cuba. I think I made 23 different trips to Cuba. But, and then I decided to retire. Only didn't retire. I began to work with disaster relief. I will complete 19 years the 1st of November. So November, I'll start my 20th year with disaster relief. So I get to travel all over the Northeast, from Kentucky, Virginia to Canada, from the Mississippi to the Atlantic Ocean. So I've got a pretty good area that I cover. And I do what I do. I call churches. Sometimes they call me, but most of the time I call and tell them who I am, say, may I come and visit you? That's what I did here. And you said, yes, please. Thank you for accepting me to come. Brought 2 pieces of material with me. If you're not familiar with us, this is a brief introduction to us. Take it, read through it, share it with other people. This is a summary of what we've done this year through the month of August. And we update this every month. It's broken down state by state, the township we've been to, the congregation we worked with, what the disaster was, a lot of facts and figures in this. But to summarize it, $3.9 million of relief supplies sent to churches in 42 townships, 16 different states, total of 122 shipments. We started in 1991. So back in August, we hit a milestone. We reached $200 million of relief supplies that we delivered to congregations. Think about that. $200 million of relief supplies. We did that without government assistance. It's done with the generosity of congregations and individuals And that number just keeps going up. The Hurricane Helene hit down in Florida, come on up as a tropical storm, and just did a lot of damage in a lot of places. We have a truck being unloaded in Valdosta, Georgia today. We send these 53-foot trailer loads of relief supplies. I've got a model of our truck out on the table, if you want to see what they look like. Tomorrow, a truck will be unloaded in Cedar Key, Florida. Tuesday, one in Lake City, Florida. Wednesday, one in Lakeland, Georgia. Thursday, one in Newport, Tennessee. And pending at this time is a truck for Asheville, North Carolina, Hendersonville, North Carolina, and Elizabethton, Tennessee. And that list will grow. Matthew 25. You're familiar with the chapter of the end of time, the judgment of all people. And he separates the folks as a shepherd would separate his sheep and his goat. The separation was based upon whether or not we fed the hungry, gave drink to the thirsty, clothed the naked, visited those who are sick, or in prison, taking the stranger in. To those who did that, receive eternal life. Now, I know there's more about Christianity than that, but that's what's taking place here. Those who did not do it were sent away into eternal punishment. So it's important that we as a church and as individuals, that we minister to people who are hungry, who are thirsty, who are naked, who are strangers, who are sick, who are in prison. What a better time to do that when people are suffering from a disaster. You can go online and you can see photographs of what happened during this storm. You'll see a place in if it was Tennessee or North Carolina, a town totally gone. It was there, it's not there anymore. That's hard to comprehend. You see pictures of houses with water up to the roof. You lose everything. You see pictures of a hospital in East Tennessee where they didn't get out with the patients in time, and they're up on the roof of the hospital waiting to be rescued. The flood water is too swift, too much debris in it. The wind is still blowing too much for helicopters. So they're stranded up there until they could be rescued. People lost their lives. But what a better time for the church to be on the scene and say, you know, I know you're suffering. I know it's terrible, but I want you to know that God still loves you. God's people still love you. And we want to minister to you in whatever way we can. And that's the reason we load up the trucks. You know the story of the Good Samaritan. What about that fellow who was taken advantage of by the thieves? And they wounded him, stripped him of all that he had. And left him to die on the side of the road. But the Samaritan comes along and he sees him there and he ministers to him. And he takes him to an inn, continues to take care of him through the night, gets the innkeeper to take care of him when the Samaritan must continue his trip. Y'all not going to want to get within 10 feet of me. I can't control this cough. But we need to be Samaritans. We need to be people who are willing to reach out and to minister to people in their times of need. And that basically is what we do. Let me explain how we operate. A disaster takes place. we contact the church in that community or the church nearby, and we ask, do you need help? And sometimes they say, no, it's not as bad as as the media makes it out to be. We can take care of it. But other times, they say the devastation is so bad, we're going to need all the help we can get. And so we tell them we can load this 53-foot trailer and deliver it to you. What you need is a place where you can unload that trailer. I don't know if you've ever unloaded a 53-foot trailer. There's a lot of stuff on there. You got to have plenty of room. And you have to have volunteers to do that. And then the local church where we deliver it, you're going to minister to the people in your community. When that truck is unloaded, our driver gets back in it. He goes back to Niceville. He's a volunteer. All of our drivers are volunteers. They volunteer their time, their ability to take those 18-wheelers wherever they need to go. And they'll unload it. And we'll deliver a box with some material in it, some guidelines, some suggestions on what to do. But basically we say, help everyone that needs help, regardless of who they are. Forget about all the differences that society has. We have religious differences, racial, political, and boy, this time of the year, the political differences really show up, don't they? Forget about all of that. You may be a strong Trump person, and the person you're helping may be a strong Harris person, or vice versa. Go ahead and help them. Get their name, their address, their phone numbers. What did they lose during the disaster? And you have all of that information. Did they have insurance? And so you help them with whatever you can. What's on that truck are 300 food boxes. These are big boxes, weigh about 60, 70 pounds, of a variety of canned and boxed foods. Feed a family of 4 for about a week. Somebody did some calculation and said, what's in that box? You can make 20 family meals. So we deliver 300 of those. We deliver baby boxes. So people have infants, they lost everything. It's either burned up, washed away, blown away, whatever happened to the disaster, you know. And this baby box has everything that you can continue to take care of the baby. We put personal hygiene boxes up. Everything that male and female uses to take care of the physical body. We put cleaning buckets on with cleaning supplies. In that cleaning bucket, we also put a flashlight with batteries. If you've ever been to a place and all of a sudden there's no electricity and it's nighttime, it gets dark in a hurry. I was in Jamaica in 1988 with a group of Auburn University students when Hurricane Gilbert come through. There was no electricity on the island. They killed the electricity before the storm hit so people wouldn't get electrocuted with power lines being down. At night, it was dark. But we set that flashlight in. Oh, by the way, in the food box, we put a New Testament. Has the plan of salvation outlined in it, has a personal handwritten note that some of our volunteers write, a note of encouragement. Then we put additional pallets of detergents and bleach and cleaning supplies. We put mops and brooms, shovels and rakes, wheelbarrows, work gloves, heavy-duty garbage bags, all of these things to help clean up whatever the disaster was. And if the tornadoes or the hurricanes, we'll put a lot of tarpaulins on the truck. Roofs are damaged. Cover them up as quickly as you can. With floods, put a lot of box fans on the truck. Don't have to put so many tarps on, but you put box fans on. We put blankets, pillows, sheets, new clothing, new shoes. That's basically what we put on that truck. When I started doing this 19 years ago, that truckload of supplies had a value of about $40,000. Now it has a value of $70,000 to $80,000. Inflation has been in the news lately, but we've had inflation with us all the time. It's been gradual. Every year, prices of things go up. Of late, it seemed like, they went up more quickly than what we were accustomed to. But basically, the truckload is the same, and the value of it is about doubled. When we ask the people that we're sending the supplies to, we can't tell everybody what to do. We can offer suggestions. We can say, here's some guidelines. Here's some things that will work if you'll do it. But when you help them with a cleaning material, with a food box or whatever, fill out this form. What did they lose? And was it insured? Did they lose their appliances? Did they lose their furniture? Did they lose their beds? Did they have insurance on it? If they have insurance, good. It'll be taken care of. If they don't have insurance, how would you like to go to Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever place and have to replace all of your appliances? I don't even want to know what it would cost to replace the refrigerator like the one we have at home, or the range, or the washing machine, or the dryer, or the water heater. Well, if you don't have insurance and lost those things, and your income is below a certain level, it's higher than the poverty level, but then we can provide some of that. We say, you ask the folks, what 2 things do you need the most? You can have 2 appliances, or you can have 1 appliance and a room full of furniture. We can't completely furnish a house. That's just beyond means. And they'll get a list of those things, a family that needs them, send it to us. We'll order it, we'll pay for it, and the people we buy it from will deliver it to the church. Then they can call the people that need it, your appliance, your furniture, your beds, or whatever is here, come and pick it up. That's basically what we do. You have questions? Yes.
How many trucks or how many disasters do you think a year? I mean, you got that on that flyer, just how many per year?
Don't know. When they first began this, way back in the early 1990s, some of the folks said, we need to think about a budget. If we had $40,000, we could do a lot of things. Well, $40,000 went a little bit farther back then than it does today. But some of those people have gone to be with the Lord, and if they were still here, they'd be amazed. Somebody said, what is your budget? We said, we don't have one. What do you mean you don't have a budget? We don't know how many disasters there's going to be. We don't know how severe they're going to be. We don't know how much money we're going to need. So we can't set up a budget. What we do, we just tell people this is what's happening. And you go on our Facebook page, and Mike Lewis in Nashville tries to keep that updated. And some of the comments on it is, where can we send money? I've already made a donation. Somebody said, I've collected some things. Can I bring it to you? No. We don't want you to bring anything. And there are 2 reasons for that. One, we can buy it cheaper than you can buy it. Well, really 3 reasons. 2, we don't want used things. 3, we want all of our boxes identical. All the infant boxes have the same thing in it. All the food boxes have the same thing. All the hygiene boxes have the same thing. All the cleaning buckets have the same thing. So money, it's what we need. And I know every major disaster, we have people that call, wants to bring things, and we just say no. And one of the first things we want to do is empty our closets of clothes that we don't wear anymore. People on scene many times will say, used clothing are a disaster within a disaster.
Mhm.
Somebody else had a question back there.
Is there another Church of Christ disaster organization similar? Are you doing the same sort of things?
You have the disaster response team, and you have us, disaster relief. Two different groups, located two different places, do two different missions. We deliver the 53-foot trailers of relief supplies, and later on appliances and furniture. That's all we do. Except in Nashville, they'll share information. People will call and say, "What can I go to Valdosta, Georgia and help?" Somebody asked, "I have a relative down there, has a tree on their house. Who can I get to go cut it down?" And the answer was, disaster response team is going there. That's what they do. Contact the church in Valdosta. Tell them what your relative needs, and they'll work on it. I have a friend. He worked with disaster response team some, did a lot of things on his own. Jim would take time off from work. He had a good job. He worked for his brother, so he could get off sometimes, and most of us couldn't and still get paid. And he'd go and take his chainsaws and cut trees. He told us a story. He said, knocked on the door of this house. They had trees down all over the place. And the older person comes to the door. Jim said, "Would you like for us to cut these trees up? Get them off of your house, get them off of your property, and all." They said, "We can't afford it." He said, "What do you mean?" Somebody came by and wanted $2,000 to do it. Jim says, "This is your good day. I'm going to do it for nothing."
Mhm.
So we have good people who are willing to go out there and do things. Somebody else had it.
I don't have a question, but something to be pointed out is the fact that the Red Cross is a good organization, but your organization is all volunteer. Everything goes to people who need it. Where Red Cross, they pay some of their employees, and there's only a certain percentage that goes to people who need help.
Okay. We have paid employees too. There's 9 people in Nashville that keeps everything going. There's 5 of us who are doing what I'm doing today. One works out of North Carolina, Ken Lowry. Ken gets all these hurricanes. He's working very diligently now, trying to contact all of these churches. We have Brian Spicer down in Louisiana, covers the Deep South and Texas, maybe some other states. We have Dennis McClintock in Missouri. He picks up the middle part of the country. And we have Dale Lindsay in Washington State. He gets the far northwest and all. And I'm doing what the areas I told you that I do. So there's 14 people who are paid. But we couldn't do what we do if it were not for the volunteers. They're going to pack food boxes Tuesday in Nashville. They'll pack 1,500 of these 70-pound food boxes in 2 hours because there'll be 250 or so volunteers show up to do it. They'll pack the baby boxes. They'll pack the hygiene boxes. They'll pack the cleaning buckets. Volunteers enable us to do what we do. If we had to hire people to take care of everything that we do, we couldn't do it. Not at the rate we do. 85 to 87%, and sometimes it even reaches into the 90% of every dollar donated to us reaches survivors of disasters. Think about that. Go home this afternoon, get on the internet, and research some nonprofits or humanitarian aid groups and see what amount reaches who they raise the money for. If you get a phone call to raise money for something, I'd run away from it as quickly as I can. Because I know most of those, even though they're good works, 10, 15% is all that ends up going to what they're calling for. But we can do 85, 87%, sometimes in the 90s. It's based upon the severity of disasters and what our contributions are. So it fluctuates. Another way of looking at it is that every dollar donated to us has at least 3 times the purchasing power of that dollar. And sometimes more than that. In other words, what you could buy with $100, we could buy $300 on it with that same $100. And so, because we buy in bulk, we have good vendors we buy from, they treat us right. And every now and then we'll have a vendor that will be in a tight spot and out of their generosity, just give us things. Several years ago, we had a family-owned shoe company. They lost the lease on their building, and they were trying to decide, do we want to rent another building? Do we want to move our business? At our age, maybe we ought to just retire. And they decided to retire. They had $400,000 inventory. They called our office and said, will you accept $400,000 worth of shoes? You better believe it. So sometimes that happens. That's rare. Sometimes after Katrina, everybody remembers Katrina back in 2005. The Air company found out what we were doing and said, we appreciate what you're doing. They gave us $1 million of their ovens, their stoves, because they appreciated what we were doing. That's rare, but it does happen. And they get a good tax write-off. You know, we'll give them authorization. They gave us this, and they didn't get anything in return. And so they can write it off. But most of our contributions come from individuals, from congregations, unless maybe you work for someone that will match your contribution. And we get some like that.
Thank you for correcting me on the paid employees that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for correcting me on the paid employees.
Yeah.
Well, I've been a part of both organizations helping, and you brought up Katrina, lived in Ohio then, but have lived in Louisiana. Went to Louisiana and worked with DRE and DRT, both in that area.
Yeah, I was someplace talking, and somebody come up to me afterwards and said, they were working with one of the major disasters, and said, we were getting truckloads of stuff from everywhere and everybody. We were having to unload them. We're having to sort out what's good, what we could use, what couldn't be used, what would end up in the landfill. And we see your truck come in, and then we stop. And we'd applaud because everything's pre-packed. It's ready to give out when the truck is unloading.
How many of these trucks can you send out at one time? So when there is a major disaster and many states and people are needing help, how many of these trucks do you have that you can send out at one time?
Well, we can only send trucks out one at a time. We have 3 tractors, 3 trucks that pull the trailers. So we have the trailers. So we load it up, go and deliver, bring it back, reload it, get another driver, take it wherever it needs to go. After the Hurricane Ian, a few years ago, Ian, I think was his name, we sent 14 truckloads in 14 days out of our place in Nashville. Now that's loading the trucks, delivering them, coming back and reloading, delivering them. 14 truckloads in 14 days. After one of the other disasters down in Louisiana, we lease our trucks, our tractors. We only had 2 then, we have 3 now, but they were going down to Louisiana. It's a day to get down there, unload, a day to get back to Nashville. Loaded up, a day to get down there, a day back. Well, the remnants of that storm got to New Jersey and had flooding up there. And I contacted the church and they said, yes, we need a truckload of supplies. We got, I forget how many homes underwater. I called Mike in Nashville and I said, we need a truck to go to New Jersey. But I don't want to take 2 truckloads away from Louisiana to take 1 truckload to New Jersey. It's going to take them 2 days to get to New Jersey and 2 days back. They could have taken 2 truckloads to Louisiana. I said, I don't want to rob those folks just to help the people up in New Jersey, but we need to help the people in New Jersey. Is there other alternative? We'll hire a trucking company. They'll back their trailer up to our dock, we'll load it, and they'll have a team of drivers and they'll get it to New Jersey faster than we would. And so there's been occasions that we've had to do that. There's been times when, and we probably will during from this hurricane, been times that we just couldn't keep up. We had to yell for help. Or you're a private contractor. Do you own your truck? Do you have a trailer? Would you be willing to do this? And we don't like to do that because if that truck goes down the road to wherever it's going, nobody knows what it is. That's Joe Brown's freight company. But when our truck goes down the road, everybody knows what it is. When it gets there, it's unloaded, they know where it come from. That other truck gets there, you don't know. So we prefer to use our own equipment, but there's times that to help people and they're great need, we'll get some extra help for us. Got about 3 minutes.
What's the process for a congregation to receive one of the trucks?
Well, if you had a disaster here in Mount Vernon and we didn't know about it, and we won't know about it unless it makes national news or weather, call us. But most of the time we know about it and we're going to call you. And do you need it? Do you have facilities that'll take care of it? This is sort of a long story, but I want to tell you. A year ago, in June, I had this right shoulder replaced. A couple of weeks after that, we had flooding in Vermont. I had contacted the church in Springfield, Vermont, because we'd worked with them before. And they said, yeah, send us a truck. So that was no problem. But to take care of the rest of the state, I needed to go up there. I'm a one-armed guy, and I'm right-handed, by the way. My wife said, you're not driving to Vermont. My daughter, who lives in town, says, you're not driving to Vermont. My grandson that lives in Leesburg, Virginia, said, you're not driving to Vermont. Dennis McClintock out of Missouri called me and said, you're not driving to Vermont. I'll drive up to Kansas City and I'll catch a flight into Boston and I'll rent a car and I'll drive up to Vermont. And that's what Dennis did. And some of the places he had to help up there were small. There's only 9 congregations in the state. Springfield is the largest. I think it's 45, 49 people. The rest of them are smaller than that. So Dennis goes up there and helps these small congregations to find a place where they can unload a truck, to secure volunteers to help unload the truck, so the church can minister to the people who were flooded. And it's just a matter of going the extra mile. And Dennis has covered for me on a couple of times when I just couldn't do it. Had a son, our oldest son, who was dying of cancer. And he'd had some complications. We'd made a quick trip down to LaGrange, Georgia to be with him. We're driving home. We have a once a month conference call. And as we're driving home this Tuesday, it's conference call day. So we're driving up the road talking, and I said, well, I've already set up a delivery at the church in Paintsville, Kentucky, and when I get home, I'll catch my breath and I'll drive over there. Dennis said, no. He said, you got enough to deal with your son. I don't have anything on my schedule. I can leave today and pack a bag and go. And he did it again. Went over and worked. I said, you're going to the mountains of Kentucky. People there are different than people in Missouri. They're good people, but they're different. Dennis calls me back after he'd been there and he said, you're right, they're different, but they are good people. So we help one another out. And I saw on our group text that Dennis already offered Ken Lowry, do you need help? Let me know and I'll come and help you. But we just want to provide the church the things that are needed to help people in their community following major disasters. My time's up. Thank you. I still walked away from it.
Oh, you're fine. I'll give you, for the sermon, I'll give you the lapel mic.
Thank you for the water.
Oh, absolutely.
I have to just